Okay, hi everyone. Mel is supposed to be talking now, but is currently having microphone trouble, so
Hello?
she's just working. All right, great. I'm going to shut up and hand you back over
Oh,
to
I should just let you carry on now. Hello everybody. As you know, because you've tuned in, this is our first proper AGM. So the way it's going to go is, please, if you've not done so yet, please comment in the side with your name and the club you're representing. We're going to go through both our departmental reports, our organisational review, which we do annually with you, as well as our finance report, strategic plan review, see how we're going alongside what we decided to do 2 years ago now. And at the end, there will be a space for questions. Please, we ask, if you have a question, this goes to your club representative. We are aware that other people, well, not their club representative, may be watching, but all questions should be going through your club representative. After we've gone through each report, we're going to need to vote these through. The way we're going to do this is when we've gone through it, then in the comments, same as how you said you're here, you can write for, against, or abstain if you don't have an opinion either way. We do have quorum because someone has checked, so it just means that all the reports are through and we've checked them all with our members, which is good and important. Okay, so I'm going to start, unless anyone has a reason why I shouldn't start. Okay, so we're going to start just by going through the departmental updates. These go for all of our main departments. If you've not received the email, that's fine, I can send it over later with all the updates and all the links to all the things we're going to talk about through it as well. If you need it instantly, we can get that to you as well now. That's fine. Okay, so I'm sorry, it's going to be a lot of me talking, and I apologise for that, because that's not very exciting. But hey-ho, there you go. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Outreach and Development Department. So right at the start of this season, this was taken over by Rick Stittington from Scarlett Hughes. This is very shortly around that time also made into Outreach and Development instead of the original teams. This means that it covers both areas. So we have both outreach, which looks at getting new people involved in Quidditch, whether that's actually a proper adult team in our adult league, doing junior Quidditch sessions, and also just outreach at events and festivals and that type of thing. And we also have the development department, which focuses on our already existing teams and improving them. This is where general forum and those type of things all fall under. So we've now got pretty lot of people within that department all volunteering. The Team UK also counts under the development strand too. Okay, so things in the department's been going on. There's been various external events that we've been involved with this year, such as the Sport and Fitness Show in Brighton and various junior Quidditch-based events. I know it's something we're definitely looking towards doing more of in the future, and we're now getting towards the resources to do that more. Obviously, one of the big successes of the department this year, and across the whole organisation, was the Development Cup, which saw 9 teams come from all over the country, some of which had never played a proper match before, and it was a pretty big success and has meant a lot to all the teams that were involved. So that's obviously an important thing and something we're continuing on with next season. Obviously, we can't talk about this department without talking about Team UK. They did quite well, I think we could say, at European Games. But this is also a season where it's tried to be a bit more structured. So we've added the expansion squad onto this, have more coaches involved as well, and people to help out behind the scenes, all of which has gone well, I believe we can say. Cool, so that's the first part done. Gameplay and events, half of that is pretty obvious as to what they've done this season. So this is the first season we've run 4 official events. So Northern and Southern Cup, as well as BQC and obviously Dev Cup, as we've just discussed. It's also a season where we've created entire ref tests, have now put in place a tiered system for both referees and the snitches. Particularly a snitch certification is something that is quite rare across the world, so that's a big plus for us. Also, we've changed our payment structure. So before this season, we never used to pay assistant refs, snitch referees, and snitches, and it's something we now do, as well as creating lots of documents to help refs before large events, just to get used to it and to know kind of what to do in certain situations. Okay, so the communications department, This, of course, kind of is basically our marketing drive, and all our PR stuff all comes through the communications department, which is currently being run by Simon Bidwell. So this season we had new regional logos and created branding for regional and national tournaments, as you'll see. And I mean, I thought it looked pretty pretty, so hopefully you did too. We covered all those tournaments, managed to get them in quite a few press releases as well. Obviously, Tom Fisk is a big part of that, so thanks to him and also all his new members in that department too. We've increased our social media reach a lot this year as well, which has been a benefit. As I said before, public relations outreach has improved, and also helping to improve communication between teams and QuidditchUK. We put in place our Slack channel, so we have a Slack channel for QuidditchUK volunteers, which is essentially like Facebook, but not on Facebook. We have lots of different channels. It's an easier way of working, basically, and a communication tool. It hasn't been completely taken up with the club Slack as much as we'd like, but it's something we can work on and work towards. It's a positive step forward either way. We sadly have had less written and video content output this year, but we've had a lot of photos at the same time, so obviously all these things are stuff to be worked on. Obviously, a main problem we are currently facing is our website, which we know isn't great. However, this is all in, like, the website's being in production with our web designer externally, and so with that, and also Bidwell sadly stepping down and a new director coming in, there should be some really solid foundations for that department to grow on to new heights next season. Next one is volunteers. So the volunteers department was previously called the Human Resources Department. It is now run very recently by Molly Morris-Smith, Professor Redding. Sadly, this department has ironically struggled with volunteers, which I know sounds funny, for the past 6 months since Tamara stepped down, but is now finally finding its bearings once again. Obviously, one of the big problems that QuidditchUK faces is on volunteer burnout and our high turnover. So having people in place to kind of look after that and see what we can do to help people and incentivize volunteering is obviously very important. I think a real positive step forward is currently the current summer project volunteering we've advertised recently. We received a really good response from that. And have got lots of people involved doing like Team UK stats and census, to name but a few things they're currently working on. And the engagement from that's been great. So hopefully we can use that positivity to bring across for the rest of the department and for more permanent volunteers too. Finally, the operating department. So it's seen a lot of big changes. Previously, it was just our finance department, but it's now been put together as finance, logistics, and procurement. So basically, everything that we do all runs through the same people, which is a much more efficient way of running. It's not perfect now, and currently we've had a lot of problems with this, particularly the last few months, with our accessing our bank account when Meg stepped down, and lots of external things that sadly were beyond our control. However, this has just recently been solved, so hopefully we can now get this all back on track once again with Jack Gady as our new director, and get lots more volunteers working in that department too to help them out. It's a department that's still very much in its infancy and hasn't fully reached its full potential yet, and obviously has those teething problems that you can expect when you're starting a new department. However, there's loads of really important progress about to start, like centralizing storage and that type of thing, which is really important for us running forward. It's not the most glamorous department probably, but it's one that's going to help us improve dramatically. We need that structure in place for us to do all the shiny, exciting projects that we want to do. Okay, so that's that section of it done. So I think if we pause there, we need to vote this bit through before we talk about the rest of the stuff. So if anyone doesn't know if anyone has any objections, but if not, then if you can please all vote inside to just approve that report and approve that is correct and true to what you believe, or along those lines, I think. So just vote for, against, or abstain. Pick abstain if you don't really know or have an opinion either way. Well, thanks for that, everybody. The next part is talking about the strategic plan review. So I'm going to pass you to Jesus talk a bit instead.
Hi, everyone. So I believe those of you representing your clubs will have had the general meeting report circulated around. In this, there is a link to both the strategic plan document and also the review document for this season. For anyone who's not aware, the strategic plan set out the objectives of QuidditchUK from the start of the 2015-16 season running to the end of the 17-18 season. So we've got one more full season to go kind of on this strategic plan before we review it and hopefully put in place a new strategic plan looking forward beyond 17-18. So what we've done is just gone through looking at our targets, our interim targets for this point, and just commenting briefly on where we are relative to those. So I'm just going to talk through them briefly and kind of give a little bit of a comment on where we feel we are. So the first section is our membership targets. By the end of the 2018 season, we were aiming to have 1,800 individual members, and as a benchmark, we were aiming for 1,400 by 2017. In actual fact, we only have about 900, so we've fallen quite a way short of that. Although interestingly, looking at our other kind of targets, we haven't fallen anywhere near as far short. So actually, it might just be that was a miscalculated target or an over-ambitious target of individuals, but it doesn't reflect the shortfall in growth that it seems like it might. Related to that, our second target was 2018. We're aiming to have 50 member clubs, and by 2017, by the end of the 2017 season, so August 2017, we're aiming for 40 member clubs. We haven't quite hit that, but we do have 36. So kind of ballpark wise, we feel like we're on track for that. We're on track at this point for that target, and 50 or close to 50 is not unreasonable. In a similar vein, we were aiming for 60 member teams, and by the end of 2018, or by the end of the 2018 season, and 46 by August 2017, and we've got 43. So just to be clear, clubs versus teams. Clubs is referring to things like Sheffield Quidditch Club, Oxford University Quidditch Club are one club, and then they're 3 teams in the case of Sheffield, or 2 teams this season. They're planning on 3 next season, and 2 teams in the case of Oxford and the Chimeras and the Quidlings. So we're always going to hope to have sort of a few more teams than we are clubs. And again, we're only 3 short of the target, so excuse me, that's not a great cause for concern. And the last membership target was that we were aiming over the course of the review season to provide more what we called soft benefits to being a member. So it's not necessarily just permission to play at tournaments, but also kind of resources and access to other things that access to other things that we'd want to or we want people to value in QuidditchUK membership. So just kind of what we've put in the comments at this stage, because it's a hard thing to quantify, is just a list of things that kind of we see as significant benefits to QuidditchUK membership at the moment, which are referee and snitch workshops and testing, a discount on access to epi and medical services coverage, access to not only the competitions we run, but qualification to things like the European Quidditch Cup through our regionals, resources like the QuidditchUK drill manual, and also these aren't member exclusive benefits, but obviously QuidditchUK in association with All In, or sponsor All In, who themselves produce resources which are open source, sorry, not open source, but open access. Things like the Hooch Initiative and departmental support from the Outreach and Development Department to support and sustain clubs, and coverage under the public liability insurance plan that currently applies to all QuidditchUK member teams or member clubs. The next section of the strategic plan, with our which we've got targets for, is international relationships. And there's only 2 targets we're measuring against in these. The first is that by 2018, we were aiming to continue to support the growth of the International Referee Development Programme through cooperation and communication. doesn't quite apply because the IIDP no longer exists as a separate entity, but its role has been filled by rules committees and referee development committees within the IQA. And Quidditch UK remains involved with the IQA in furthering rules development. We have repeatedly in Congress supported moves towards a consistent international rulebook. I spent some time on the rules committee last season. And Steve Cockram, who's currently part of the Quidditch UK Gameplay Department, is also a member of the IQA referee development team. So we've got those links there. We are continuing to work towards that. And the second point was that Quidditch UK aims to help the continued growth of Quidditch Europe and the IQA, in particular looking at guaranteeing a high standard of organisation for large-scale international tournaments. And we feel we're definitely on track with that. We provided a bid to host European Games 2017, not successful, obviously, but we still, providing options and competition and viable venues is an important part of guaranteeing high standard, even when those venues aren't selected. We've been well represented as a nation on tournament committees for or on both the European Games Committee this year and the World Cup Committee last year. And Mel Piper also has a leading role, as well as being president of QuidditchUK, in the European Committee, which means Quidditch UK contributes a lot to the European Committee, and we share and benefit ideas and resources, especially within the European Committee, to the greater benefit of Quidditch in the UK and across Europe. And we have a sort of a symbiotic collaborative relationship with the much smaller NGB in Ireland, which we hope is helping kind of mutual development on both sides of the Irish Sea. The next section is events. The target is by 2018 that Quidditch UK will host at least 6 events each season. And that for the season that we're currently coming to the end of, we would host 4 events. The long-term goal is still not necessarily the case, because that was envisaging more regional championships than we currently have. But for the 2016-17 season, we did host 4 events, specifically Southern Cup, Northern Cup, BQC, and Development Cup, as Mel mentioned earlier. So we may have to revise the overall target depending on the context, but we've met our interim target for that point. The next benchmark was aiming for compliance with new policies on tournament leadership structure, which was something we were hoping to achieve by the end of the 2017 season. Such a structure does not yet exist, but is being developed as part of a revised events department and set of event guidelines at the moment. So it is realistic that a policy on tournament leadership structure or some other changes to improve tournament leadership will be in place in a year's time when the strat plan period concludes. Similarly, we had a target to have all our events compliant with new policies on event transparency and financial responsibility. These policies are not currently in place or in immediate development, but they do remain targets. It is still possible we will have completed them by the end of the strat plan period. The next point was we will aim to have recommended balls, hoops, and snitch equipment across all our events, and where possible, arrange sponsorship with the relevant suppliers. We have had, without having kind of advertised endorsed equipment, we have had consistency in balls, brooms, and hoops used across tournaments this season. And we have good links and developed or developing working relationships that have been in place with our events, or we are looking at as options going forward with the 3 major suppliers of Quidditch equipment and resources in the UK, namely Blue Hawk Quidditch Supplies, Two Hands Events, and Emerald Quidditch Supplies. Sorry, is it Emerald Quidditch Equipment? Whichever of the 2 it is, Emerald. The next point was by 2018 we were aiming to, there wasn't an interim objective of this, we're aiming to provide official and sanctioned events with access to at least 1 dedicated event coordinator who's responsible for ensuring that the tournament committees and event management was kind of well structured and aware of the resources that Quidditch UK provides to support them, and that they're kind of maintained to a standard that Quidditch UK expects, and so on. Sanctioned events are not really a priority for QuidditchUK moving forward. For context, if people aren't aware, those were events which sort of QuidditchUK lending its brand and its support to events that clubs themselves put on that were not part of the regular tournament structure managed by QuidditchUK. There just wasn't the interest or the need, I suppose, perceived on either side for QuidditchUK to have an active role in those. But it is intended that we are taking on new events volunteers to formalise and develop the running of QuidditchUK events and provide more support to the tournament committees we take on. So we do feel we're on track to meet the still relevant part of that criterion by the end of the strat plan period next year. Next and final events point was that by the end of the strat plan period next year, QuidditchUK official and sanctioned events would have a minimum standard of medical support compliant with the health and safety policy. And the interim objective was that we'd have established consistent monitoring and recording of injuries at events and implementation of a health and safety policy at events. We don't have a distinct policy, but we are in close collaboration with EPION Medical Services, who at this point are our only real medical service provider for all of our tournaments. So there is consistent monitoring on their side. They're very aware of kind of the trends and the concerns with Quidditch injuries that they face when they're working with us. And we're always very receptive to their suggestions, and we're always keen to and sort of quick to consult with them on any tournament-based policies or kind of safety compliance issues. So while we're not actually instituting a policy, we feel we are in spirit compliant with this this objective, because our collaboration with EPION wasn't something we'd foreseen when we developed the strat plan, really. But we're definitely compliant in a more stringent way than we were with safety requirements and professional guidance on keeping everyone safe. The next section is officials. 2018 objective was that we'd have a certification process for all officials, which would include timekeepers, scorekeepers, and goal referees. Obviously, first point on that is that having a certification process apply doesn't necessarily mean QuidditchUK develop it ourselves. We may make recourse, depending on the situation in the rulebook, which is still to be confirmed. It may be a case that we simply defer to the existence of the IQA tests, but in any case, we certainly have had, up to now, we've always had an applicable set of referee tests for snitch referees, assistant referees, and head referees to the QuidditchUK rule set. We don't have a set of rules or of certification process. Sorry, we don't have a certification process for timekeepers, scorekeepers, and goal referees. That was not a target for this point in the season. We are reviewing it for the next season. It's not a guarantee that we will meet this objective by the end of the strat plan period, just in light of the resources that QuidditchUK has. And when you require certification positions, you limit the resource pool, and we do need to make sure we're still getting these volunteers. But it's something that's under review. We had, as an interim objective, beginning to collaborate with the IRDP, the referee development program that used to exist and has now been subsumed into the IQA, on a standardized training package which will contain referee training resources, mock tests, and snitch training resources. This is something that sort of exists in bits and pieces. There isn't a standardized kind of resource pack yet, and there are plans along these lines, maybe in place by the end of the strategic plan period, we hope so, but there's nothing concrete or imminent on those. The next objective was that we would have run a snitch training workshop in cooperation potentially with the IRDP. We'd also have run a referee training workshop open to all the regions that we have within QuidditchUK, looking towards a standardized academy or workshop-based system of training by the end of the strat plan period. We have attempted to run both snitch and referee training workshops in the current season. We've had some success in getting them to take place, but generally there's been a limitation just by a lack of interest. We've had to cancel workshops because there just wasn't the uptake effectively from from members to want to do them, to make them worthwhile. So we are reviewing this objective now and long term just to see whether there is interest and there is the uptake to justify running the events and whether they're actually going to be helpful, whether there actually is demand for them. But we've sort of tentatively considering the interim objective met. The objective for 2017 in terms of referee numbers was 130 qualified referees and 40 head referees with 12 field tested referees. We've fallen quite a way short of that. We only have 62 qualified referees in total. 15 of those are head referees, and 16 of those are fully field tested from assistant to snitch to head referee. So we've slightly exceeded the field test targets, but in general we've fallen short of targets. And generally there is a sense of referees being overstretched, which is something we're looking to improve on. It's quite a difficult issue, as everyone's aware. Related to that, the objective is that by the end of the strategic plan period, so the end of next season, all of our member clubs would be encouraged to be able to have a sort of a full referee team available from their club members. The interim objective was that 80% of our clubs by the end of this season should be able to provide that full referee team, and 1 head referee, 3 assistant referees, and 1 snitch referee qualified. That's quite hard to quantify because our volunteer requirements are not working in terms of sort of a referee team per team at the moment, or per club at the moment. So we do have volunteer requirements in place. They have been sufficient to run the tournaments QuidditchUK oversee this season, but we don't have kind of a clear idea of the stated targets, and we certainly don't think we have the either literally or the equivalent of a head referee, 3 assistant referees, and 1 snitch referee per team. But we are looking to kind of develop the contribution of volunteers from clubs and revise targets to something practical, but also meeting requirements over the coming season. Next is on leadership and management. Interim objective regarding the Board of Trustees was about electing Board of Trustee members for QuidditchUK by general forum, which is no longer applicable because we are revising, because we have revised our objectives on incorporation to a system which no longer necessarily requires a Board of Trustees. Having a Board of Trustees for QuidditchUK is no longer a short-term objective. The next objective relates to Sports England recognition. The strategic plan objective overall was that we'd be in the process of recognition by the end of the 2017-18 season. The target being full recognition by 2020. The objective we were targeting for the end of 2017 was full compliance with a certain set of requirements which have changed since we developed the strategic plan. So Sporting England recognition is definitely still a midterm goal. The 2020 objective is still optimistic, but something we are aiming for. But we can't really measure against the specific interim objective because we don't have the same criteria as we did when we developed the strat plan. But we are preparing things like financial reports, and things like having this AGM are the most fundamental stepping stones towards Sports England recognition. We also had a target of beginning research into the benefits of BUCS recognition. That's the British University and College Sports, I believe is what the acronym stands for. We were aiming by the end of this season to have prepared an evaluation of the pros and cons of recognition. That's simply a high-level assessment of the limitations and difficulty of accessing BUCS recognition, especially without Sports England recognition, and just the resource it would take to seriously pursue that. I mean, that is no longer a short-term objective, and we do not expect it to be underway by the end of the strat plan period. We were hoping for the end of this season to hold an annual leadership conference to deliver training and resources to club leadership. Our current position is that a leadership conference is not practical. We don't have the wherewithal or the resources, and I don't think there would be the uptake to hold a sort of a conference to that end. But the Outreach and Development Department are regularly producing resources for club development and leadership, and do act as a sort of a consistent liaison for specifically new clubs, or particularly new clubs, but in fact all clubs who need Quidditch UK's guidance or would like Quidditch UK's advice on any club development or leadership issues. And the final leadership objective was that we were targeting 3 paid employees, namely the president, vice presidents, and finance director, by the end of the 2018 season, pending the meeting of financial targets. And the interim objective was that by the end of this season, the vice president and the president would be paid positions. This is no longer an objective we're working towards. The decision was made in the 2015-16 season that there were more effective ways to invest Quidditch UK's turnover to have short-term benefits to the sport. So we're not expecting to be targeting any paid employees by the end of the strategic plan period. Nearly done, sorry, 2 more sections. The next section is regional development. We were aiming, or we were speculating that we would be we would have 4 regions by the end of 2018 and 3 by the end of 2017. This is not an objective we've met, but we don't consider it a failure specifically. It's just not been necessary based on the geographic and numerical development of teams and regions. The 2 regions is still working fine, and we don't expect that to change next season. The target for BQC was that by the end of next season, we would have qualification through regionals for BQC, and that would be implemented this season if growth objectives were met. And that has been the case. We have had enough growth to have a qualified BQC in the season we've just finished. So that is a target we have met, and in fact met slightly ahead of schedule. We had a target by the end of this season to have regional managers reporting to the teams director, as was responsible for filtering decisions from EMT, the executive management team at Quidditch UK, down to regional levels. The position departmental names have changed, so it's no longer teams department or teams director, it's the outreach and development department. But there are regional expansion managers existing within that department, pertaining to, I believe I'm right in saying, the south of England, the north of England, and Scotland. There is also a Welsh expansion manager. And their primary remit is supporting new clubs and encouraging the development of clubs where there are no clubs at the moment, but they also act as a general liaison between clubs in the region and Quidditch UK. And we've also developed, as Mel mentioned earlier, the Quidditch UK Club Slack channel, which acts as a direct representative or direct communication channel between representatives of each club and senior Quidditch UK volunteers. And the final point of this section was that we were targeting by the end of this season at least 10 sustainable clubs to exist as a clear consequence of initiatives supporting new teams such as the Hooch Initiative, with a view to having 15 at the end of next season. As far as we could ascertain primarily from either the Hooch Initiative or attending Development Cup in their first season, which we've also seen as a benchmark in establishing teams as a sort of a sustainable presence. We have identified Liverpudley Cannons, Portsmouth Horntail Strikers, Bournemouth Banshees, Glasgow Grim Reapers, Basilisks, Preston Poltergeists, Bristle Puffs, and Warwick Quidditch Club as clubs which have come out of one or both of those initiatives, not specifically this season, but since or at their inception, since Quidditch UK started running the Hooch Initiative. So we are 2 clubs short of our target, but again, it's not a massive concern. These numbers are always going to be a little bit malleable, and we definitely hope to build on the 10 that the 8 that we've already achieved next season. And the final section is just on communication and the community. We were targeting by this point to have a publicly available archive of minutes from meetings within 2 weeks of the meeting taking place. This is definitely the case for the primary meetings, the executive management team meetings. The meetings for kind of a departmental level are a lot less regular and a lot less formalized is what I mean to say. So we don't have kind of clear archive of minutes for those, but all kind of significant feedback from those feeds into the executive management team minutes, which are in place on the QuidditchUK website. We were targeting a publicly available archive of annual budgets by the end of each season at this point. There is not a budget online at the moment, but we do expect to be able to publish the financial report, which constitutes the annual budget, before the end of July, so for the end of this season. So we hope to meet this target, this interim target. And final point relative to this point in the strategic plan period is that by this point we were hoping to host open office hours, which, if you're not aware, are sort of in similar way to this live hangout Q&As, where we field questions from the community on a bi-monthly basis. We reached the decision a while ago that bi-monthly was too frequent, as we already had regular ones on a slightly less frequent basis than bi-monthly, and there wasn't the interest in the participation and the contribution of questions to consistently sustain them. But we are achieving regular open office hours at what we're pitching to be the right balance between consistently having them and having the right level of interest and like number of questions building up, that they are actually worth tuning into and worth us hosting. And I am done talking.
Okay, so same as before, if you can just write for, against, or abstain in the slide for the report. Obviously, the strategic plan was written in 2015 or 14? I can't
15.
15. Yeah, all the years blow into one. Okay, so obviously there are things we're not going to meet, and there are other ways we're going to go in different directions. We were aware of that last year, and we're still aware of it this year. It's the way the sport grows. Obviously, we wouldn't expect to have ever done something like Development Cup before, and then it felt like the right step for us to take. Similar with a lot of different options, really. Different things come up which we never expect, and other things we decide at the time would be a great idea to do, we decide in the present are definitely not the right thing to do. So yeah, there's obviously going to be a discrepancy there, so that's fine. But yeah, if you could just vote on the side, that'd be great. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone again. Okay, so the next section is a bit shorter. This one will be probably like pleased to know, it's been here a while now. Is to do with our organisational review. So each year, we've been doing this for the past couple of years now. We go through our annual organisational review, looking at ourselves internally to see what we could be doing better. Getting someone from outside of our exec management team to come in, make sure we're all running fine. We review all our members of volunteers, staff, as well, and help see what we can do to help them more and where we feel they'd like to go. Perhaps if they've got a project they'd love to do that we've not previously heard about, that's kind of the time to say it. So the large-scale organisation review is conducted by at least 2 members of EMT, so our exec management team, and at least three members of non-exec team who also work for the organisation. So this year, myself, Yanni, and Jack all did it from the EMT side, and Emma Bramwell, Becca Short, and Judith Ballinger all did it from the non-exec side of QuidditchUK, which obviously gives a really nice balance to see opinions both from the top of the organisation and further down it as well. So part of that was the constitution review, which we are now putting through our exec management team to vote through, which you'll be able to read in the minutes on the website when they're uploaded. Another part of this was the SWOT analysis. So we basically went through and looked at all the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats towards QuidditchUK currently. So obviously it currently has a really a number of strengths. As we keep mentioning, because it is one of our main successes this year, Dev Cup allowed a lot of teams who would have missed out on their regionals or BQC tournaments to actually get a chance to play and to learn so much as a team and be helped along by visitor coaches and that type of thing. And now a lot of those clubs are going to go on and they will compete in regionals next year because they've been given that sustainability basically. We've also got a larger media presence, including social media. Expansion, we've done really well. We are pretty much almost at 50 teams in the country, which is incredible and really exciting. Also, something we've not yet publicised because it wasn't long enough announced ago. We were also shortlisted for award we applied for in partnership with All In, looking at gender equality in sport and the work that All In did, and as a partner of QuidditchUK. So well done particularly to the All In people for that. Sport and Recreation Alliance is basically like a QuidditchUK for all the NGBs of various sports across the country. So everything from like the FA, UK Athletics, hockey, and us as well, and other smaller sports as well, which gives a lot of opportunities through there too, which we are proud members of. We also have lots of good international and external relations. This means both with other NGBs across the world and people like venues such as Rugeley, Epiam Medical People, obviously are a brilliant external relation, and someone we're very proud to work with and very privileged to work with as well. Work with This Girl Can, the fact we're featured on the website is pretty awesome in such a national campaign. It's obviously very good for the sport and for what we're trying to promote. The quality of events has also improved. Again, we ran 4 events this year that would never been possible in previous years. We know there are still problems with events. That's not something we're trying to deny. But the quality as a whole has generally improved. Also, of course, on an international stage, Team UK have done very well both in last year's World Cup and European Games this year. And also we medalled at European Championships this year as well. So being at the forefront of the play across the world is obviously very important for us. It brings in a lot of publicity as well. And obviously it's important to have the most elite athletes you can to represent your national governing body abroad and internationally. Okay, so on the flip side, there are a number of weaknesses that we are aware Quidditch have, or QuidditchUK has even. As you can see from the first 2, the website we know is very difficult to navigate. We know we have problems with the emails as well. So thank you for your patience when applying to say you're going to come to the AGM and any problems with those you had as well, and the bounce backs we are very much aware of. This is all now currently going under overhaul system, so hopefully very soon we'll be actually able to have a proper functioning website, and it'll look amazing and be really functional too, which would be handy. Another problem that links into that is towards effective communication. So members of the community are generally unsure who works for QuidditchUK and what their positions actually are. Bar like probably about me and a couple of others, other people will struggle to name members even on the exec, let alone people that work further down the organisation, regardless of the work they do. For example, someone like Emma or Becca, who was on there, some people who don't know them personally may be unaware they work for the organisation, and that's something we need to make sure they do, because they deserve recognition for the work they all put in as hardworking volunteers. Again, having a website to be able to put that on would be very handy. So we can work towards that. So sometimes there's a lateness of meeting deadlines. We are aware of that. Obviously, as like I'll come on to later on as well, we are all doing this voluntarily in our spare time. Majority of exec in particular currently are all on full-time employment as well. So obviously sometimes deadlines can slip. Obviously something would rather not happen, but it does, and it's something important to address and say we do have. Sometimes the lack of responses to event feedback for the community, we need to be better at responding to that. Live stream and filming is something we've struggled with this year, and it's something we definitely need to work on more, and something I think we're probably going to focus on in the next upcoming season. And also lack of team engagement on Slack. Obviously it's going to happen with something providing a completely different communication platform that people aren't as used to. But hopefully we can start establishing this more and more in the upcoming seasons. So opportunities coming towards QuidditchUK, or opportunities for us out there. Obviously more community teams have set up, which allows a wider demographic of QuidditchUK members. Currently the majority of them are based at universities or people that went to that university or around that area. Having more community teams means we're getting away from just being a university sport, and that's an important step for us to take. Of course, Sport England, Scotland, Wales, all the slashes. It's very important to be recognised as a legitimate sport on that stage. It's something we're obviously working towards. The expansion team or expansion squad that Team UK now has is really important in allowing people to be recognised and get towards that elite level. For example, like Callum Lake came through the expansion squad this year and obviously made quite a big difference at European Games, proving it's an important system and something we need to keep in place. Opportunities working with other smaller NGBs. So this season we worked quite a lot with Quidditch Ireland to just help them set up and become a more formalised NGB. It's something that's ongoing. Work with Sport and Recreation Alliance, as I already said, they offer a lot of opportunities for us as an organisation and to help us grow, and advice and support where perhaps we need it, because it's all new to us, whereas they've seen it in other NGBs, and other NGBs, regardless of sport, all face similar problems at some point. Coaching development is a big area for us to start looking into, and I know particularly Hannah Watts is looking into this right now, which is very exciting, to have like an actual legitimate certification system for coaches, similar to all other sports. Same with Quidditch development is a massive area. I know personally from work I've done that schools love the sport. So that's a whole new area for us to look into and really tap into. The work Kieran did as well in Scotland with over 200 kids shows that's a massive area of growth for our sport to now take. Club accreditation schemes we can start working on to help clubs in their governance as well, because obviously it's quite difficult sometimes, and they all face problems, which is something our development team are working on. And also aiding, supporting and promoting other Quidditch-based businesses. Obviously the more the sport grows in the UK, the more chance there is for other people such as like Two Hands, Blue Hawk, Emerald to exist and provide a better quality of equipment, for example, and events, etc., which is obviously really important to our development. You've got to have other businesses for an NGB and a sport to grow and to become sustainable. Then finally, the threats. A lot of these are based on volunteers, and we're aware of them. Some of them we're trying to work on as much as we can, but of course that's going to be difficult when all of us are, as we said, volunteers. So no one is doing this full time. So volunteer positions sometimes are taking longer to fill, and it's something for us to work on as an organisation and work out how we can make that not so long a period of time. Burnout happens, obviously, particularly around tournaments. It's very demanding, like constantly every moment. If you're, for example, like I know Tom Chalner is constantly doing absolutely everything when it comes to BQC or regionals, or when you're running a tournament, and it can be really difficult to then come back from that rather than just not crash out. And that's an important kind of thing we need to combat. High turnover volunteers as well. as we know, people change over quite a lot in QuidditchUK. Again, that's kind of inevitable, beside people having like actual careers, etc. But it's something that's faced at all levels of the organisation, not just the exec, as we're doing more publicised and more aware of recently. Thanks, Bite Outside. And also the slight threat in the discrepancy in rule books as well. Obviously, currently there are many different rule books, and it needs to get back towards a unified one to make sure we're all on the same one and doesn't stunt the growth of the sport. Okay, Becca Short also came into EMT, so basically we have a weekly meeting on Tuesday. Becca came into 2 of these just as an observer to see how they worked. I'm not going to go into this into too much detail, as you can read yourself. Again, if you didn't get a copy of this, just let us know and we can send it back out to you. It will also be made available on the website with the minutes of the AGM. But yeah, just seeing how we were running it. And also the presidential review kind of went through the main important things that the organisation has learned and grown from and worked on this year, and things we've struggled with, which Judith completed for us. But it goes through lots of detail about international work as well. But yeah, that's basically all the things. Obviously, I'm like, one of the main things I mentioned in the president's review for me is a lot of basics, or a lot of things on workload and getting stuff done when we've had limited volunteers this year, and we've had quite a few big volunteers all disappear quite quickly or in succession. So obviously trying to kind of pick up the slack from that, which is not the fault of them, but just working out how best to do it has become a challenge. But it's something we've got through, and we've still provided a lot for what we can do, really. And it's making sure we can keep doing that sustainably without burning out everyone in the organisation. And that's a tricky kind of like tightrope to walk. Okay, so same as before, if you can just vote for, against, or abstain in the side, that would be grand. Thank you. Okay, so thank you again, everybody. We're now going to move on to the financial review. As we mentioned earlier, we've had a number of problems with access to bank account, which were only very, very recently solved as of last week. This means that for the time constraint to the meeting, we are going to provide you, Jackson provided a financial summary for this meeting, which we're going to vote through. However, by the end of July, we're going to provide a full-scale one, which will be available on the website. We will then ask club representatives to then vote this through again, as if it was in the AGM. We apologise for that. We know it's not ideal, but it is literally the best we could do at this stage. It's been very stressful, but yeah, I will leave you in the capable hands of Jack.
Hello. So the majority of our finances come from membership fees, team fees, and player fees at tournaments. And for obvious reasons, our biggest expenses are tournaments, particularly the Development Cup, because we wanted to keep costs as low for teams and players as possible. However, due to unforeseen circumstances of our bank account this year, we've been unable to access it for quite a while now. That does mean, however, that the figures that I've got are the latest ones, the most up to date, but there are still reimbursements to be made, as a lot of people paid for it out of their own pockets and need to be paid back. So for the last 3 months, the 16th of March to the 15th of April, we ended the month on £12,554.27. On the month after that, 16th of April to 15th of May, we ended the month on £9,924.08. And then the month after that, so the last month, which was the 16th of May to the 15th of June, we ended on £8,502.56. However, because of the lack of access to the bank accounts, we used PayPal a lot. So we have £878.33 in the PayPal account, and we have from merchandise sales £1,700. So that brings us to a total of £11,080.89. So while we are down from 3 months ago, it is looking positive. That figure will change as we finish off the financial review, which will be made available by the end of the month, when we work out exactly how much has been spent on all the tournaments. And it will be published along with departmental budget reviews for the 2017-18 year, which we haven't fully done before. So this is going to be new and exciting for the year to come, and you'll be able to see what projects we will have planned for the year. So that's the finances for the.
Well, yeah, as we said, obviously those numbers do go down quite a bit because we made Dev Cup as affordable for the teams as possible. That was the importance of it, and it's an important thing for us to use our fees on is the development sport. But yeah, as you can tell, like we're in a good financial situation. It means we're going to have much more scope when it comes to actually doing our first departmental budgets, because we have that more money to actually do the projects we actually really want to do, which is very exciting. As I said, that's of course not our full financial review, and that will be voted through later. However, we are going to vote through the financial summary for now, if that's okay. So again, do the same as before. I think this is your last vote, so congratulations, everybody. Please vote for, against, or abstain. Thank you. Well, thank you again, everybody. That is the end of the formalised section of the AGM. The only thing left is for questions from any of the club representatives. So if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the side. We've had one already from Jess Lee. How well was snitching certification played out, and have people been using it at tournaments? Will this be something reviewed for recruitment? Jesus, you happy to answer that one?
Yep. So obviously, it might surprise you, I'm not so much of a Quidditch nerd that I can just pull numbers out for you right here. I know it caused some problems at regionals when it had been going kind of for a short period of time because of the requirements for qualified snitches to have done a certain number of games within the recent period. But I think we stuck with it, we made it work then, and those did prove to be teething problems. There weren't any significant issues at BQC or at at Dev Cup with getting an appropriate number of qualified snitches. So the gameplay department will, of course, be reviewing it going into the next season. I believe they're already in the process of kind of looking how they can refine it, making any changes they want to make for the next season. But by and large, it seems to have helped. It seems to have kind of helped us identify the better, the more kind of experienced and talented snitches we have in the UK. It's definitely helped us to kind of quantify and refine the means of making sure we've been able to pay snitches in the same way as we started to pay assistant and snitch referees, which is an appropriate way of recognising that they make an equal contribution to the running of the game. I certainly think on a broader scope, things like EQC and European Games recently have borne out that UK snitching is amongst the best in Europe. So I certainly don't think there's any signs that the snitch certification process isn't doing its job in terms of getting us the best snitches, and tournaments have not really struggled, as I said, barring those initial teething problems which were resolved for getting the numbers of snitches. So yes, it will definitely be reviewed. But I'm afraid I don't have the numbers of exactly how many certified snitches we have. But by and large, I think the consensus is that it has been a success after one season, and we will see how it plays out going forward.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is from Jack Nord. Regional managers were mentioned briefly in the strategy report. Can you expand on the progress that's been made in filling those roles? So currently, all of them, bar the Scottish one, are currently filled, and we have volunteers in those positions. That one, the Scottish one, is open, so if anyone wants it, the application is open now. We've had an applicant, so hopefully that person will fulfill the role, but obviously we get to interview. So if anyone else is interested, please feel free. Obviously, always good. But yes, the majority are filled within the department. So yeah, that kind of covers that question. Bath have asked if any idea whether regional dates and locations will be announced. It's literally waiting on the final confirmation from venues. We've had a slight setback on one of them for something beyond our control. However, we will do this as soon as we possibly can. Obviously, we wanted to release it a few weeks ago, and we've been held back by venues. So that's the only issue. But yeah, keep posted on that. Okay. Layla from Sheffield asked, is there a concern that requiring timekeepers, scorekeepers, and goal refs to be qualified will put people off volunteering? Jesus, do you want to take one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there absolutely is. That's I probably wasn't clear enough, but that was definitely something I was trying to allude to when covering that. That's one of the main things we're looking at in terms, or we will be looking at in terms of implementing it, is if and when it does come, we need to make sure that it isn't something that just, at the cost of slightly increasing the quality of scorekeeping and timekeeping, slashes the number of people we get doing it. So it's definitely something we're going to be being cautious with, because you're completely right that it does have the we've never struggled for volunteers in those positions, when it's always been a little bit more of a concern to get them for the qualified positions, and there's not really much doubt that a big part of that is the effort and requirements of getting qualified. The next one is The question is, I don't see important news items until the deadline is nearly passed. How is QUK news publicised and could it be better? All I can say is either check the QuidditchUK website news section regularly, or set yourself to have notifications from the QuidditchUK page itself publishing on Facebook, or regularly check the notice board channel in the club Slack if you are representing a club, or ideally more than one of those. Every announcement, every deadline, every news piece that we aim to, also that we want or need clubs to know, is posted on our website and or social media, usually multiple times, or it'll be posted once on the website and shared multiple times. Then not everything is shared by a QuidditchUK volunteer from the QuidditchUK page into the UK Quidditch group, because that would oversaturate, it would deteriorate, it would sort of diminish interest in the important posts we do reshare, and it would annoy the moderators and people who are not in that group for information. But everything is posted on the UK Quidditch, in the QuidditchUK Facebook page. So if you subscribe to notifications from that, you will pick them up there. Or if you just check the page every couple of days. And there is a bot which automatically, every time something is posted by the UK, for the QuidditchUK Facebook page, also shares it in the notice board channel on the club Slack. So I'm tentative to say be more proactive, but the information is out there, and perhaps the issue is making it clear what the correct channels for looking at that are, rather than putting it out there, because there is kind of most deadlines and announcements are shared more than once prior to the "it's tomorrow, why haven't you done anything" kind of last minute thing, which we always ideally don't want to have to make. So yeah, check the club Slack regularly, check the website regularly, and if nothing else, make sure you're getting notifications on Facebook when QuidditchUK page posts anything.
Yeah, I hope that covers that one. Jack has asked again, could more of the major Quidditch tournaments be held further north in consideration to travel times for Scottish teams? Obviously, that's something that we quite like as well. We are very much dependent on what venues become available to us. So while we proactively also look for venues and approach them, we're also reliant on clubs, particularly in areas that we don't know very well, to find venues to help with the tournaments as well. Obviously, we take into consideration travel times for everybody, but often it's picking a venue which there's going to be some kind of can't be the best way to put it, but like downside to it currently. Obviously, it's going to be different travel times for everybody. I understand that obviously Scotland, and particularly St Andrews, is much further away. Basically, we need it's further north, which we are trying to do what we can for before, but obviously that's kind of like our struggling point really, is we need the bids, so please find us further north bids, and if that's something you think would be a really good thing for us to have, and obviously it would help Scottish teams. Okay, the next one.
Just quickly to add to that, Mel, before you go on, I'm not sure if there's any kind of specific underlying reference here to Development Cup, because I know that was a big concern, that it was quite far south and 3 of the 9 teams were Scottish. Above everything Mel's just said, we didn't have much choice with venues on that, but another reason that was so far south, because I know it did frustrate the 6 of the 9 northern teams, 3 of which was Scottish. It's quite simply that we did an expression of interest level submission, or level registration for Development Cup, and in that there was a reasonably sizable majority of southern teams. So that was just a circumstances beyond our control. We thought at the time the tournament was catering to a majority of teams in the south, and it turned out in terms of those that could actually attend, it wasn't.
Yeah, thank you. The next one, what will the format of the financial review meeting be, and is there an estimate? Maybe I said it wrong, which I didn't mean to. The review will be released as a document in the style of last year's, which is available on the website for you to see. Through that, we'll then ask teams and club representatives to send an email vote to myself, please. We will give more details at the time of how to do this properly. But yeah, it will be done via that, so you can look through the entire document. No need for an actual meeting. You'll be able to look through it in your own time. We'll give like a week space for people to review it and vote on approving it. Next one, is there a plan to increase benefits of making a tournament club official? Jesus?
Yeah, so we've noted in the question that this may have been mentioned before. It sort of was touched on. I'm assuming this question means, please come back in the comment if I've got this wrong. A tournament other than sort of regionals, BQC Dev Cup, a tournament such as, for example, Compass Cup, White Knights, Chips and Gravy, that a club hosts or an individual hosts, which isn't directly involved with QuidditchUK, because historically there was a precedent for QuidditchUK kind of lending support to those, publicising them a little bit, providing a little bit of event support in return for requiring that players were registered and affiliated with the correct clubs, that the correct sort of requirements were met for example, paying referees and first aid cover and so on. In the short term, is there a plan to increase the benefits of this? Not really. We have, based on the way we were running sanctioned events, as we ended up calling them, with the level of support and contribution QuidditchUK could make to these events, there was quite a small interest to begin with, and increasingly diminishing interest from clubs or from event organisers to actually make the events official. It just ended up being the case that the majority, if not all, events that are happening that weren't being run directly by QuidditchUK just didn't want to be sanctioned. And I think that is because we couldn't, with the resources we have or had, and I think realistically still have, we couldn't provide enough to make it worth these clubs effectively, who were mostly already running good tournaments that tick most of the boxes QuidditchUK needed ticked, going through the administrative hassle of checking everything and making sure it all fell into line with what QuidditchUK needed. So it really wasn't a relationship that benefited either party. And I don't think until maybe in the midterm, that situation might change. We might be able to get more volunteers who can kind of focus their efforts on being a really kind of clear liaison for those events and actually making it a much more inter-beneficial relationship. But currently there isn't a short-term plan to do it, because we're not convinced that for the benefit it gives, for it to be worth clubs doing it, for the benefit we'd need to provide for it to be worth clubs doing it, we don't have the resources, and particularly the volunteer power, to provide something that would incentivize clubs enough.
Yeah. Okay, next one. With regards to improving on live streaming matches, are there any plans for investment in that area, budget for data or relevant tech example? Basically, obviously, currently our priority really lies with filming matches as well. It's all well and good if you have a live stream, but having something available afterwards for teams to look up and see their performance is of a higher priority to us. So we probably cast that as, yeah, a higher priority for now. However, obviously live streams are great and there are lots of benefits to those. As a whole though, filming matches is our one of the main aims to improve again. And hopefully with an increased budgets and sorting out departmental budgets, we can maybe look into that area a bit more as well and have a bit more resources behind it, which will obviously help. Next question, is there ETA for the rulebook and ref tents announcement? It is being worked on as we speak, and we expect an announcement imminently. It's literally just working out the best option for us and for our members currently. And obviously all the options are now available, which makes it easier for us to look at them properly. Next one, Was there supposed to be a BQC review coming out? Yes, there is. There will be a review of that and Dev Cup coming out, obviously, with things like EG and people being away, and bits and bobs beforehand. These haven't been as timely as we would like. However, both will be coming out very soon. Other delays, do you have an ETA for when regional locations and dates will be released? Not exactly, literally, it may be a phone call away, it may be a case of tomorrow we all know, it may be a couple of weeks' time. We want it as soon as possible. I'm afraid we can't give you a proper say, and it's annoying for us as much as it is for you, because obviously we want to start planning the event. But yeah, just bear with us. We are trying literally everything we can and phoning them and emailing them as much as we possibly can to get through to them. Okay, that's the end of the questions I've got that I can see. If anyone, I'll leave it for like a minute or so. If anyone has any other questions or follow-up questions, please let us know now. That would be great. But as a general thing, as you can see, there's been a lot of success this year. Obviously, we're not perfect, and there's no chance, I mean, we'll ever be properly perfect as an organisation. However, we are making big steps forward, and that's really important, and sees us in a great stead internationally as well. As an organisation, we are the third biggest NGB of Quidditch, which is pretty awesome in the world. And something we aim to keep improving on and making the sport as wonderful and brilliant as we possibly can. And with your support, so that's even better. Oh yeah, we are currently, as part of the one, we talked about it earlier, the summer project volunteer scheme thing. One of them is running a Quidditch census for all our teams and clubs to see how they, or kind of how they run, what they charge, etc. If there's anything you'd like to particularly be focused on within that census, if you want to comment it down the side as well, then that will be really good, because obviously it'll lead to more club resources for you to use, and obviously it's really interesting data as well to see how other clubs run alongside your own. So please feel free to comment those in the side as well, because Yanni is in charge of that project.
There is just one more question come in.
Yeah, I've just seen it.
Is it only team managers who can join the club Slack, or can a team have more than one representative? Yes and no. We want, well, we invite teams to have one account, which most teams have captain or manager or president, whoever, really, it doesn't matter what the position is, just someone in the leadership who is the most kind of clued in, has the most interest in the admin side, who's the most likely to respond positively and quickly to announcements, events, etc. But a few clubs have, and there's no reason it can't be the case that you have sort of a club email account or a club resource account. So, you know, if you have, rather than having your captain or your president have a personal account, have an email and password from your club that your president, your captain, and, you know, anyone who you don't mind having that access has access to, they can all access that account. So you can only have the one account per club, but it's completely up to you who you give access to. And we have no problem with it being a club resource account rather than it being an individual.
Okay, thank you for that. As far as I'm aware of what I can see, yep. There are no more questions. Obviously, any question you have at any time, please just let us know and email us. I'll be more than happy to talk to you, or talk to us through the club Slack as well. That's always good. But thank you, everyone, for your patience and for the hour and a half-ish that you've given to this meeting. It's much appreciated, and it is obviously a really important step in us to actually do our first AGM, and really helps us towards being a more legitimate organisation as well. So thank you, everybody. Any extra census stuff you want to know, I'm sure you can just shoot Yanni an email or a message about it. And I don't know if the comments thing disappears. I don't do tech. Either way, there's ways for you to talk to her and her team as well. But thank you, everybody, for being here, and I shall now say goodbye and go enjoy your evening, please. Thank you, everybody.